Oh, Damian Lillard makes third team All-NBA. Should he have been higher? Plus, an introduction to the G League. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts. Why do you make the show your first listen? It's coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So why don't you make it part of your daily routine? Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking Damian Lillard, a third-team All-NBA selection, and then later in the program, Kevin Danna, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors, C-Dubs, is going to join me. We're going to talk just G League nuts and bolts, give you an introduction to what you can expect from the G League this fall when the Blazers will roll out their G League team for the first time in close to a decade as they re-enter the world of the NBA's developmental league. That's what we'll do to close the show. But first, let's talk All-NBA teams. Damian Lillard named to an All-NBA team. He's All-NBA third team, his seventh selection, trailing just Clyde Drexler, who had 8 to make All-NBA teams. Drexler briefly played in the league when there were only 2 teams, so he might have made more if he had debuted a little bit later. But that's just kind of how eras work in general. But I think, this is a great accomplishment, first of all. Let's just start there. There are 450 NBA players. There are 15 dudes who make All-NBA teams. It's less than 4% of the league. Like, this is the elite of the elite. This is the All-NBA is a real honor. And the way All-Star games are a real honor, and Dame's made 7 of those, but making an All-NBA team is a real honor. So first and foremost, matters for legacy stuff, just in general, to be one of these 15 names on the list is important. There's some stupid financial implication stuff that we'll talk about maybe in next week's show, as it specifically relates to Jaylen Brown. On a show next week, we'll talk about that for sure. But for now, let's talk about Dame. He finishes on the third team All-NBA. He was the 6th vote getter, 6th most votes among guards. So the guard on the team with the fewest number of total votes. He finished with 0 first team votes, 36 second team votes, and 29 third team votes. He finished behind, like I said, he was 6th. First team All-NBA, Giannis, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic. Second team, Nikola Jokic, Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown, Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell. Third team All-NBA, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, along with Damian Lillard, Julius Randle, and LeBron James. Like I said, this is a real honor. I think you can quibble with where Dame landed, but to me, this sounds about right. I did this exercise for the Locked On Podcast Network. We voted on our All-NBA teams, and to be totally honest, I had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Luka Doncic on my first team. I think people are mad with Luka's selection because the Mavs weren't very good, and he was, they straight up missed the plan. They didn't participate in any postseason basketball. But Luka at the beginning of the year was in the MVP discussion. He was really, 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 really good. I think that sort of factors in. And when you look at the rest of the guards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he deserves to be there. I had him there. He deserves to be there. He was the best player on a team that really, really overachieved, and he was excellent. 30 points per game. He's a good defender. Belongs there. Luka, you could quibble with, but I think it's totally fine to quibble with, but I'm not personally, I'm not outraged by it. I'm a little surprised he cleanly made it over Donovan Mitchell, because typically voters reward winning, but he finished with 403 total points and 60 first place votes. Donovan Mitchell, 45 first place votes and 349 points. So it wasn't even particularly close in that respect, but Mitchell was the closest guard to making it. When I did this, I actually had Donovan Mitchell and Dame on the second team, and then I had Steph Curry and Ja Morant on the third team. I did not have De'Aaron Fox on mine among guards. I think Ja has a pretty good case to be made that he was snubbed a little bit and maybe bullied by maybe bullied in general by the way his off-court stuff went this year. Now he acted like a doofus, and I think the voters treated him like that. Fair or not? I would say probably in general not fair, but not surprising. I think my strongest, most passionate take about this is that Damian Lillard probably should have been second team. He's third in the league in scoring. He was excellent. But I don't think third team is that big. Like, I don't think being a third team All-NBA participant is that big of a deal. Played more games than Steph Curry. Steph played 56. Dame played 58. So it wasn't like, oh, well, he just didn't play enough. To me, he didn't play enough to be considered first team All-NBA. 58 games is not enough. The way I would do my ballot to make first team All-NBA, just straight up, not enough participation to be considered that impactful. And the team wasn't very good. And there was never a point after the first. The Blazers were good in the first 14 games. Dame missed 5 of those games when they started 10 and 14. Not to say like he made them worse. That's not what I'm implying. But like Dame was never had this team like rolling top half of the West, even for like a stretch of couple weeks where it's like, oh yeah, this team is really good. They were always kind of like, if they win a couple, they're not that far away from 4th, actually. They might be in 11th now, but they're not that far away. They're a game and a half back. Or they'd be like, now they're technically tied for 7th in the West. But they were never, with him involved, they were never like truly rolling and like excellent. I think it's fine where he is. And I'll share this story. He missed the All-Star team in the 2016-2017 season. I was covering the team as a beat reporter for the newspaper here in town. For the Oregonian Oregon Live, if you want the business. But I sent out some pithy tweet about how, it's okay that Dame didn't make the All-Star team. You had Steph Curry, and you had Klay Thompson, and you had James Harden, and you had Russell Westbrook. It was just like, it was going to be brutal to make it in the West, and the Blazers at the time, Dame wasn't so far ahead that he was going to get one of those back half spots. The sort of, wild card spot went to Gordon Hayward on a good Utah team, and it's like, well, I think you can say that he should have been included, but I said something like, I don't think it's a snub, it's just a numbers game. And someone who works in the Blazers front office texted me within 10 seconds of maybe that tweet and said, he's going to make All-NBA because voters reward winning. Damian Lillard made second team All-NBA that season. Voters rewarded winning. It came true. Like they won games down the stretch, and Dame was second team All-NBA, and that person in the Blazers front office was right. I don't think I reached back out to congratulate them on their correct prediction, but it was like a moment where it was just like winning matters for All-NBA. And to me, the Blazers, like, while you can make the case, like I think that's the case against Luka, right? Is that Dallas wasn't very good, so drop him down. But he was prolific and really, really good. I think he's like a second team All-NBA performer. I think you could argue that Dame had a better season than Luka, and I'd be fine with that. I think like overall raw production-wise, he didn't. And I think the perception of Luka early in the season was much higher. Like he was like in the MVP conversation when the ESPN straw polls came out a couple times. So I think it is totally fine for Blazer fans to be aggrieved with Dame's position, but I also think it's pretty fair. I had him second team. He ends up third. Kind of just sometimes it's like that. I think Dame was the best point guard in the NBA this year. Winning matters. If the Blazers were a little bit better, it wouldn't be a debate. It's an individual award that factors in the performance of your team. It's why I think Donovan Mitchell has a case to be on that first team when Luka shouldn't be, and I think that's why De'Aaron Fox ended up making the All-NBA team, because the success of the Kings as third best team in the West feels like Ja Morant should have been on there too, but that's just me. That's why I didn't have Jaylen Brown on my team, but he got in as a forward, so it's neither here nor there for the Ja Morant thing with Jaylen Brown. Okay, to close the show, I want to talk about the G League. I've got a friend that's going to join me, Kevin Danna, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors. He's worked in the G League for forever, for a super long time. He's going to join me, and he's going to kind of run us through, as a veteran of the G League, what it's going to look like, what to expect, kind of the nuts and bolts of the G League. This is a great, if you're trying to get someone on board with, hey, how does it even work? You're going to be able to point to this episode Friday, May 12th at like the 11-minute mark and say, hey, I think Mike on Locked On Blazers actually had a really good episode explaining how the G League works. That's what we'll do to close the show, second and third segments. But first, let me tell you about eBay Motors. If you're building a championship team, you need the right parts, and that's where eBay Motors comes in. They make it easy for you to get the right parts all in one all in a couple clicks. Here's what you do. You go to ebaymotors.com. They've got their guaranteed fit. And what you do is you make sure it fits the first time by adding your ride to My Garage. Look for the green check. If green check shows up, the part's going to fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right. So we talked Dame. Great season, rewarded as such. Like I said, making an All-NBA team is elite. It's elite. It's less than 4% of the league. It's like 3.4% of the league is like on an All-NBA team. Absolutely elite. It is an honor to be included. I think he probably has a strong case to be second-team All-NBA. Even if you, to me, best point guard in the league, doesn't deserve to be first-team All-NBA. But that's enough All-NBA stuff. Let's talk G League. To close the show, my friend Kevin Danna going to join the program and kind of walk you through the nuts and bolts of what an NBA G League team is going to function like, how they function across the league for someone with a whole bunch of experience. So that's what we'll do to close the show. Take it away, Kevin. Joining me now, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors and the American who's called more Victor Wembanyama games than anyone else. You've heard him all over the NBA app. It's Kevin Danna. Kevin, how you doing?
Doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on Locked On Blazers here.
It is a real treat. So Portland's got a G League team. We don't know the colors. We don't know the name. We know the building they're going to play in, and we know the sport that they're going to compete in. But no one I know knows the league better than you. You've been working in the G for a decade or more? Forever?
Yeah, just finished my 11th year, sir.
11 seasons in a D League veteran, the man who literally wrote the book on the Idaho Stampede. You can go buy it wherever you get electronic books. You can go get Kevin's book on the Idaho Stampede. Find out what happened to the Blazers' first chance at trying to have a G League team. But while you're back here today, is I want to kind of prep my listeners, prep people in Portland who are not familiar with the G League team because they haven't had one since 2013 or whatever that was, and kind of set the stage for what to expect. So let's just start with kind of the nuts and bolts type of stuff in it. What does a G League roster typically look like? Like, who is it? All rookies? Is it all just random Pooh Jetter vets? Like, who makes up a G League team?
Portland Pilot, great Pooh Jetter.
That's right.
First, you said we don't know much about this team. We don't know what colors they're going to be. I'm going to go out on a limb and say their colors are going to be red and black. But
me too.
I'm just saying. But all right. So you have 10 true G League contracts, and then two-way guys, and there's going to be 3 two-way contracts now, I believe.
So next year we'll have 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So previously, it had been 2 two-way contracts for the first, I guess this was the 6th season of having two-way contracts. But you have 10 guys who are able to be called up by any NBA team. They are NBA free agents. They are playing in the G League on a full G League salary. That's 10 guys. And then you have your two-way contract guys who get paid on like a sliding scale depending on how many. They have an NBA rate and a G League rate. And their G League rate is higher than the normal G League rate. And then their NBA rate is like rookie scale, basically. And so you could have 3 of those guys. But you can have more than 13 players on your team because you could also get players assigned. Say John Butler Jr., whatever, gets a full roster spot next year. They can assign him. And instead of sending him to the Stockton Kings like they had to this year, he could be another guy. With 3 two-way guys, I mean, you could, in theory, now Portland's not going to do this. I mean, in theory, you could have like 17 guys on your roster. If you assign 3 or 4 players, you have all your 3 two-ways, and then you have 10 G League contract guys. But like in theory, you will most likely have 10 to 13 players because depending on where your two-ways are.
So the Blazers would be able to, for instance, send down, say, Keon Johnson in his 3rd NBA season. They'd be able to send down Jabari Walker, who's on a real NBA contract, but he would be able to. They'd be able to sign them to their own affiliate, even for and correct me if I'm wrong, for like 5 hours. They can send them down to practice with the G League team for a little bit and then call them back up that night. So how common is it from what you've seen that teams do send down the sort of Keon Johnsons, Jabari Walkers of the world, like people who are just need a little bit of seasoning? How common is that?
Yeah, no, that's very common. Basically, unless you're like Shaedon Sharpe plus as a rookie, you are going to play in the G League. And so, like, I mean, Jonathan Kuminga, I worked for the Santa Cruz Warriors. Jonathan Kuminga was the number 7 pick, and Sharpe was number 7 in 2022, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a number 7 pick, Jonathan Kuminga, played like a handful of games in the G League his rookie season. And Moses Moody, their other lottery pick from that same 2021 draft class, played a handful of games in his second season. So, like, unless you are going to be getting 20 plus minutes a night as a rookie, now that happens for a lot of teams who are coming off 15 and 67 seasons or something of the sort. But otherwise, those guys are going to be playing at least a decent chunk or, a handful of games of their rookie season in the G League. So it is quite common. I mean, Keon Johnson, his rookie year, you mentioned him, got assigned quite a bit to the then Agua Caliente Clippers of Ontario and now just the Ontario Clippers. So, yeah, no, it happens a good bit. And Santa Cruz, for the Blazers fans, we have hosted a lot of Portland guys over the years. We can get into that later if you want. But, yeah, just in a nutshell.
Yeah, I remember Cliff Alexander going down to Santa Cruz, among others.
Yep, Luis Montero. We even had on March 11th, 2020, the day the world ended in basketball, Yusuf Nurkic practiced with the Santa Cruz Warriors. And he was one of the last 5 hands I shook for like a year or however long we didn't shake hands during COVID.
Right, because he was supposed to play. That was a Wednesday, and his debut was going to be the following Sunday.
That's right,
at home. Yeah, at home against the Rockets, and the league shut down, and he didn't get back and make his return to the bubble. I totally forgot that Yusuf Nurkic had a very brief flex assignment in the G League. Yes. How about that?
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our guy CJ Wilcox.
Oh yeah, UW legend and former Blazer great.
Yeah, who played with the Santa Cruz Warriors for a little bit. And I believe it was when he was flexed from Portland.
There you go. Yeah, so the Blazers have been reluctant to use the G League because of exactly what you're describing. They got to call up Santa Cruz and say, "Hey, do you have minutes for Cliff Alexander? Hey, do you have minutes for Luis Montero, or for last year John Butler Jr., or finding time for Greg Brown III?" How valuable, in your opinion, is it just to be able to have it in-house? The Warriors are one of the teams that it's pretty close. You can ride. They literally, I believe they just shuttle guys in a van, is my experience in it. How valuable is it just to be able to have that pipeline for the Jonathan Kumingas and the Moses Moody's to be able to go between the G and the NBA so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's huge to be able to get game reps of what you're being taught by Steve Kerr in the Warriors sense. And like same terminology, exact same plays, and then you're just running it with the G League team. And instead of, running it in practice and then sitting on the bench for 47 and a half minutes a game with Golden State, you're getting 30 minutes in Santa Cruz, getting those live reps against top competition. I think a lot of people would agree that the G League is a top 5 league in the world. And so with that being said, you're playing against a lot of guys who have played in the NBA or who are on NBA contracts. And so that's huge to get those kind of reps because, as people who've been around the NBA know, in January and February, how much is your NBA team really practicing? Not a ton. Because yeah, exactly. Because you're traveling, you've got games on top of games. If you're playing 4 games a week, how much you're really going to accomplish in a practice, on one of those 3 days you're not playing. So it is huge to have those live reps in games that do count for something. I mean, it's not, it's not playing an NBA game, but it's the next best option.
How have you seen it change in quality of competition? Like you've been around for 11 seasons. How much has the G League improved in your time around it?
It's definitely improved a lot because the one thing you don't see happen nearly as much anymore is guys leaving midseason to go play in Europe because you have those two-way contracts. And so when the two-way contracts opened up in 2017-18, you basically got an influx of 60 players that I'd say a good chunk of those would lean towards going overseas if they didn't have a chance to make six figures playing in the NBA and the G League. And so you were getting like those 4A players who wouldn't stay stateside because it didn't make financial sense. Now you're getting those guys to stick. And I remember talking with a guy who was in summer league his rookie year out of college. I said, how much would it take for you to play in the G League? He said $100,000. And if you're on a two-way contract, you're making well more than $100,000. And so that is a huge, to be able to get, now it's going to be 90 guys who can hit that six-figure mark. You're keeping them stateside. I think that's only smart business from the NBA, because if you're the NBA, you should want to have all the best talent, or as much of the best talent, under your umbrella. And that's what this provides.
Yeah, and it for the guys who are making that sort of quality of life decision. Okay, well, I can move to a place I don't speak the language, I don't really know anyone, or I can stay here, I can stay home and make about the same amount of money, or in some cases more for sure. But even if it's like a little bit of less, you stay there and you get your foot in the door, right? Like you're playing, like you mentioned, you're playing for an organization, say like Santa Cruz or for the North Portland Blazers, what they're about to be. Then you're going to work with coaching staff. Like the Blazers G League affiliate is going to practice at the Blazers practice facility. So you're going to be in the building with with the NBA coaches and the executives. And so like you're going to be around the NBA team. It'll be a chance for a long-term job interview to how you practice, how you prepare, how you lift weights, all the sort of little things that NBA teams kind of love to gauge about guys before they really commit to them. And for a two-way guy, that's the difference in sticking and not sticking for sure.
Yeah, 100% correct, Mike. And I'm not a player, and no, I don't crush a lot. But if I were a player, I would think I would want to play more games, right? And more games and less practice. And in Europe, you're practicing twice a day and you got one game a week, unless you're playing in a European competition. So at most, you're playing 2 games a week. Sometimes your domestic league plays twice a week. But here in the G League, you have a 50-game schedule. Most kind of European leagues are in the low 30s, in the low 30s game-wise. And so you're playing more games and you're being scouted by NBA scouts. And it very rarely, I think Nick Kalathis got called up from overseas. And there's like a handful, like the Lundgren, the Danish dude who got called up to Phoenix last year. I forget his first name, but like that, there's like 1 or 2 European call-ups to the NBA each year at most. And there's like 60 plus most years from the G League to the NBA.
Yeah, and if the Blazers are going to keep doing that thing where they don't play for the final 2 weeks of the season, no better option than to have dudes in-house that you're already familiar with.
100%.
I want to ask you about the G League schedule. You mentioned 50 games. It's a little funky, right? How does the G League schedule work?
Yeah, I am not the biggest fan of the split schedule. So basically what it is the NBA basically wants to try a couple different things out. It's the land of experimentation. So They have a showcase cup portion of their schedule. Last year they played 16 games, and then the top 8. So basically they divided it into 4 pods. The 4 pod winners and the next 4 best records played in a showcase cup tournament, where the winner of that tournament split $100,000 cash prize. Now, every other team that wasn't in the top 8 played 2 games in front of scouts and execs. So that gets you to 18 games. And then they played a 32-game regular season where they wiped the records clear. Everyone's 0-0 going into this 32-game regular season. And then from there, it's top 6 in the Eastern Conference. They go Eastern Conference and Western Conference. Top 6 in the East, top 6 in the West, make the playoffs, 12-team playoffs, and it's single elimination until you get to the finals. I'm not the biggest fan of the single elimination. Personally, it used to be best of 3 back when the Idaho Stampede were in the G League, and then they or D League back then, and then they changed it to single elimination to the finals best of 3, because they now want to finish the G League season before the NBA playoffs start. And the G League season with the playoffs used to go potentially until like as late as May 1st would be like the end date.
Yeah, and they've bumped it up a little bit so they can, in case someone needs an emergency Shaq Harrison, they can call him up and have him. So a Shaq Harrison can make his debut in the playoffs for the for the Lakers. I mean, it's so. What is? How much do teams care about winning the championship in the G? Like how much does winning matter?
I think it depends on what franchise you ask. Some teams really want to win, like the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, the Delaware Blue Coats. Santa Cruz wants to win. And others like really don't care. It's about developing their guys. It's development over wins. And it's just about seeing kind of what talent you have on your roster. And like, I don't want to say that teams like don't care at all about winning or whatever. Because I mean, you cross the line, the coach is coaching to win a game. The players are playing to win a game. But like organizationally speaking, you can see that more teams care. Some teams care more than others about trying to hang a G League banner.
And the rest of those teams are just, and it's valuable for them to have like a little incubator setup. Yeah. Like, they value the, and my read on what the Blazers are doing because of how quickly they've launched this, again, we don't know their colors. We do. I keep saying that as a joke, but we know their colors. We don't know their mascot. We don't know their coaches. We don't know like who's running the team yet. So they just don't have like public, maybe they do, but we don't have any publicly knowledge of their staff yet. Yeah. They're still trying to hire people to like run the thing, from what I understand. So like they are valuing this as a development place, like as a place to send Keon Johnson, as a place to send Jabari Walkers, as a place to whoever they might draft in this draft, depending on if they use their draft picks or not. But like, and also just to have a run of dudes, like to send their two-way guys and to have 10 guys, like 10 G Leaguers in house that have a close eye on. And then you have and just like having a competitive, not having that competitive disadvantage of being the lone team in the league or one of two teams in the league without a G League team. That was for too long, that was a problem for them. I think they suffered because of it. And I think this will be good. If you were to pitch a fan, well, I'll get you out of here on this one. Pitch a fan on going to a G League game. What's the pitch? Give me your elevator pitch.
You can say that I was there when X player was just a G Leaguer. Like I've seen Rudy Gobert play. I mean, I didn't call a Chris Middleton game, but Chris Middleton was like on assignment. I've seen Seth Curry play multiple. Like you are going to see future rotation players in the NBA. And in the case of Chris Middleton, he's an all-star. And Rudy Gobert, multiple-time defensive player of the year. Now they're a little different. They're assignment players as opposed to true G League contracts. But there's a lot of talent in the league, and just because there are going to be 540 NBA roster spots doesn't mean that there are more than 540 players who can play in the NBA, and a lot of those guys are going to be in the G League, and a lot of those guys are going to get called up at some point.
Yeah, I have pitched this in the past that I think like the top maybe like 80 spots in the league are like those are just too good to play, maybe even like 150, like too good to play anywhere else. That back half, that final 300 is like there's like 3,000 or 5,000 people in the world who could fill out the back half of an NBA rosters. If you go to a G League game, you're gonna see dudes who are NBA caliber, and I think that's what is intriguing for me. And the Chiles Center in Portland is going to be a great spot, and you'll see Kevin there calling games, headset on, ready to go. Kevin, thanks so much for joining the program. It was a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right, have a good one, man. Dear listeners, come back for next week's shows. Next week. It's here. The freaking NBA draft lottery is on Tuesday. It is a huge week in Blazerland. And guess what? We do 5 of these a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Make it your first listen every single day. Tell your friends to do the same. I appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.